The text message from my mother was simple. Hope you can swim. I stared at those 4 words on my phone screen, standing alone on the dock of a remote Caribbean island while the massive white cruise ship, the one carrying my entire family, grew smaller on the horizon. The same family who'd spent the last 5 days guilting me about my selfishness for not investing in my sister's latest business scheme. My name is Ella, and I probably should have seen this coming. Did they seriously just leave you here? The dock worker's voice cracked with disbelief as he lowered his binoculars. Ma'am, the next commercial vessel won't dock for at least 10 days. I forced a smile. Apparently, my family thought I needed a timeout. The truth was, this family vacation had been tense from the start. My sister Gemma had spent months hyping up her new startup, some subscription box service for luxury pet accessories. She needed investors, and apparently, my carefully saved emergency fund made me the perfect target. It's only $50,000, Gemma had whined yesterday at dinner, picking at her lobster. God, Ella, you're such a control freak with money. Mom and Dad already pledged their retirement savings. I'd nearly choked on my wine. They what? Your sister has vision, my mother Melina had cut in, her voice sharp as glass. Unlike some people who waste their talent on freelance work. The memory made my hands shake as I scrolled through my phone. No signal. Of course. Ma'am? The dock worker touched my shoulder. The local police station is— It's fine, I interrupted, surprising myself with how steady my voice sounded. Really, I just need directions to the hiking trail behind the village. He blinked. The one leading to the private resort? Ma'am, that's extremely exclusive. They don't take walk-ins. I shouldered my bag. Thankfully, I'd been carrying my laptop, passport, and credit cards when they'd abandoned me. Trust me, they'll want to see me. 5 hours earlier, my father Rory had suggested we all explore the local culture during our brief island stop. I'd noticed them whispering, seen the loaded glances, but ignored my instincts, even when Gemma insisted I check out some supposedly amazing artisan stalls on the far side of the port. Your problem, Ella, my mother had said while applying sunscreen that morning, is that you never learned the meaning of family loyalty. I'd bit my tongue, like always. Didn't mention how I'd spent years watching Gemma blow through money on failed ventures, the organic smoothie bar, the crystal healing app, the designer dog clothing line. Didn't bring up how my parents enabled every scheme while criticizing my boring career choices. The hiking trail was exactly where I remembered it. 5 years ago, I'd taken a different route up this mountain, but the destination was the same. My phone might be useless for calls, but its GPS still worked. You're making a scene, my father had hissed last night when I'd refused to sign Gemma's investment contract. Just like always. I'd stayed quiet then, too. But I'd seen the look in Gemma's eyes, that familiar mix of entitlement and rage. The same look she'd had when we were kids, and I wouldn't let her borrow my college fund. The security gate appeared through the trees. My heart pounded as I approached, but I kept my chin high. Miss? The guard stepped forward. This is private prop. My name is Ella Kelly, I said clearly. Please tell Mr. Burke that the woman who saved his son Dylan from drowning 5 years ago would like to see him. The guard's eyes widened. He spoke rapidly into his radio, and within minutes, a golf cart was winding down the path. My mother's last words before they'd left played in my head. Sometimes people need to learn hard lessons about family. She was right about that part, at least. The golf cart stopped, and a familiar face stepped out. Camilla, my old college roommate. Now the resort's PR director, according to her LinkedIn. Her jaw dropped. Ella, what are you— Wait, you're the one who saved Dylan? I nodded, finally letting my shoulders slump. Hey, Cam, got room for a castaway? She hugged me tight, then pulled back with a dangerous gleam in her eye. Your family did this, didn't they? The ones you never talk about? They thought they were teaching me a lesson. Camilla's smile turned sharp. Oh, honey, they have no idea what lessons are about to be taught. Let's go see Edison. He's been waiting 5 years to thank you properly. As we drove up toward the hidden luxury resort my family had no clue existed, I felt something shift inside me. They'd wanted to break me. Instead, they'd just given me the perfect stage for a performance they'd never forget. The resort materialized like a mirage through the jungle canopy, all glass, stone, and infinity pools cascading down the mountainside. As our golf cart wound up the private drive, I finally let myself remember that day 5 years ago. I still can't believe you never mentioned saving Dylan, Camilla said, parking outside a stunning villa. That's not exactly a small detail to leave out of our friendship. I didn't want it to be a thing, I shrugged. The rapids were dangerous, I was a good swimmer, and some kid was in trouble. Anyone would have done the same. Not anyone would have jumped into Class 4 rapids, a deep voice corrected. Edison Burke stood in the villa's doorway, tall and imposing in a casual linen suit. His eyes were kind, though, just like I remembered from that brief encounter years ago when he'd thanked me through tears while paramedics checked his son. "Mr. Burke," I started, but he cut me off with a wave. "Edison, please, and you're staying in my personal guest villa until we sort this out." He gestured to the stunning building behind him, though I admit I'm curious how the woman who saved my son ended up stranded on my island. Before I could answer, a lanky teenager bounded down the steps. "Dad, is it really?" Dylan stopped short, staring at me. "Holy shit, it is you. I never forgot your face." "Language," Edison chided, but he was smiling. Though I agree with the sentiment. I felt my composure crack slightly. "I appreciate this, but I don't want to impose." "Impose?" Dylan laughed. "Do you know how many times I've told the story about the awesome woman who jumped in after me? Dad's been trying to track you down for years to thank you properly." "Your modesty made it quite difficult," Edison added. "The rescue report only had your first name, and you disappeared before we could get proper contact information." Camilla touched my arm. "Tell them what happened today, Elle." So I did. Over fresh squeezed juice on the villa's terrace, overlooking the sparkling Caribbean, I explained about Gemma's latest scheme, my parents' manipulation, and their final lesson in family loyalty. "They just left you?" Dylan's face darkened. "That's messed up." Edison's expression was carefully neutral. "Your sister wanted your savings for a pet accessory business?" "Luxury pet accessories," I corrected with a bitter laugh. "Because apparently the world needs more diamond-encrusted dog collars." "And your parents supported this?" "They always do. Gemma's their golden child. She just needs one more chance, one more investment, one more sacrifice from everyone else to make it big." I took a shaky breath. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't dump all this." "Stop apologizing," Camilla interrupted. She turned to Edison. "What resources do we have to work with?" Edison's smile turned subtle. "Well, I do own this resort, and the 3 others in the Caribbean chain, and I have some influence with various cruise lines and travel agencies." He paused. "Why do you ask?" Camilla's grin was wicked. "Because I'm thinking it's time Ella's family learned about karma." "I couldn't ask you to," I started. "You're not asking," Edison said firmly. "Consider it 5 years of accumulated interest on a debt I've been waiting to repay." He pulled out his phone. "Stephanie, please come to the villa. We need to discuss some special arrangements for our newest VIP guest." Dylan bounced in his seat. "Can I help? I'm really good at making entitled people uncomfortable." "Dylan," Edison warned, but his eyes sparkled. An elegant woman in resort attire appeared within minutes. "Mr. Burke? Oh!" She spotted me. "Is this—" "Stephanie, meet Ella. She's our honored guest, and her family may be requiring some of our special customer service protocols." Stephanie's professional smile turned knowing. "The ones we use for particularly difficult guests? I'll alert the staff immediately." My hands trembled slightly. "I don't want anyone to lose their jobs over this." "Oh, honey," Camilla squeezed my shoulder. "The only people about to lose anything are the ones who thought they could abandon you here." Edison nodded. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about causing pain, it's about showing people exactly who they underestimated. I looked around at these people, virtual strangers except for Camila, all ready to help me without hesitation. The contrast to my own family's betrayal made my throat tight. I don't know what to say, I whispered. Say you'll let us help, Dylan insisted. Say you'll let them see what they threw away. Camilla leaned forward, her expression serious. Do you want to ruin them, or just make them wish they hadn't been born? I thought about my mother's last text, about years of manipulation and guilt, about being the family disappointment for choosing stability over Gemma's chaos. Both, I said quietly. I want both. Edison's smile was sharp. Then let's begin. Mechanical issues? I raised an eyebrow at Camilla, who was lounging beside me at the infinity pool. How unfortunate for them. She smirked over her tablet. Apparently, the cruise ship's navigation system encountered some unexpected errors. They're stuck at the next port for at least 48 hours. She turned the screen toward me, showing the cruise line's CEO making a formal apology. Pure coincidence, I'm sure, Stephanie added, appearing with fresh towels and a tray of coconut water. Just like the mysterious cancellation of their premium dining packages and spa reservations. I adjusted my new designer sunglasses, a gift from the resort's boutique. And their attempt to book rooms here? Sadly, we're completely full, Stephanie's voice dripped with false sympathy. Though I did recommend some lovely alternative accommodations in the village, the ones without air conditioning? Dylan plopped into a nearby chair, grinning. Dad says the power rationing there is especially strict this time of year. I sipped my coconut water, watching the horizon through the resort's high-powered binoculars. The cruise ship was barely visible now, limping toward the next island. My phone, newly connected to the resort's satellite Wi-Fi, buzzed with increasingly desperate messages from my family. Gemma, where are you staying? Everything here is horrible. Mom, this is ridiculous. The hotel doesn't even have proper windows. Dad, call us immediately. Your mother is having anxiety attacks. They're starting to panic, I noted, showing Camilla the messages. She snorted. Just wait. The local press is very interested in the story of the abandoned woman who saved a resort magnate's son. Though we're keeping your name private for now. More dramatic that way. Speaking of drama, Stephanie gestured toward the resort's main entrance. Through the tropical gardens, I could see my father arguing with security. Even from this distance, his face was red with frustration. Sir, the guard's voice carried clearly across the grounds. As I've explained, we cannot disclose our guest list. However, Mr. Burke has been informed of your inquiry. This is outrageous, my father shouted. I demand to speak with him. Edison materialized from his office, adjusting his cuffs. Shall we give them something to think about? I stood, smoothing my designer resort wear. What did you have in mind? Just follow my lead. He offered his arm with theatrical flourish, leading me toward the entrance. As we approached, I heard my father's voice rise another octave. Do you know who I am? My daughter. Ah, Mr. Kelly, Edison's voice cut through the commotion like ice. I understand you've been causing quite a disturbance. My father froze, finally noticing me on Edison's arm. His jaw dropped comically as he took in my expensive outfit, the way resort staff deferred to me, the obvious familiarity between Edison and myself. Ella, he stammered. What? How? Is everything all right, Edison? I asked sweetly, watching my father flinch at my use of the resort owner's first name. Nothing to concern yourself with, my dear, Edison replied smoothly. Just a rather aggressive visitor who seems to have forgotten basic courtesy. My father's face fluctuated between red and white. Ella, what is going on? Your mother is beside herself. Oh? I raised an eyebrow. I thought you all wanted me to learn about consequences. I'm learning so much. I turned to Edison. Shall we head to lunch? I believe the chef prepared something special today. Of course, though. Edison paused as if considering. Perhaps we should extend an invitation to your family. Tomorrow at noon? It might be educational for everyone involved. I pretended to think it over. That sounds perfect. Stephanie, could you please ensure my family receives a formal invitation? The really nice ones, with the gold embossing. Right away, Stephanie nodded, already typing on her tablet. Though given their accommodation situation, perhaps we should send a car as well? The walk up the mountain can be quite challenging in this heat. My father stood there, mouth opening and closing like a fish. Before he could recover, Edison steered me away. Oh, and Mr. Kelly, Edison called over his shoulder, do remind your wife that proper attire is required in our dining room. No, what was it you called us earlier? Overpriced tourist trap nonsense. As we walked away, I heard Camila's voice behind us. Sir, the exit is that way, unless you'd like security to assist you. Later, watching the sunset from my private terrace, I received one final message from my mother. We'll be there tomorrow. This behavior is completely unlike you, Ella. We need to talk about your attitude. I showed the message to Dylan, who'd brought me evening tea. They still think they're in control, he observed. I smiled, thinking of the press package Camilla was preparing and the photos Edison's team had collected of my family's various public tantrums today. Let them think that, I said softly, for about 12 more hours. The resort's luxury car pulled up to my family's hotel, a generous term for the dilapidated building with its buzzing fluorescent sign and peeling paint. Through the tinted windows, I watched Gemma emerge first, squinting in the Caribbean sun. Her designer dress was wrinkled, her hair frizzy from the humidity. Behind her, my mother clutched her expensive handbag like a shield, while my father tugged at his collar. Remember, Camilla whispered beside me, let them see exactly what they threw away. The driver opened their door. Gemma's eyes widened as she recognized the resort's logo on the vehicle. Ella? She called out uncertainly. I didn't respond, letting them stew as they climbed in. The silence during the drive was delicious. I could feel their stares, taking in my perfectly styled hair, the casual way I wore clothes worth more than their entire wardrobes. Camilla tapped away on her tablet, pointedly ignoring them. So, my mother finally broke first, her voice sickly sweet. You've made some interesting friends. I glanced up from my phone. Oh, you mean Edison? Yes, saving his son's life did create quite a bond. Saving his, my father started. We're here, the driver announced, pulling up to the resort's grand entrance. Staff lined the steps, all smiling at me while pointedly not acknowledging my family. Miss Ella, the maître d'hôtel bowed slightly. Your usual table is ready. Though, he eyed my family with barely concealed disdain. We've adjusted the setting to accommodate your guests. My mother's face tightened at his tone. She'd always prided herself on being the sophisticated one, the one who belonged in luxury settings. Now she was being treated like an unwanted intruder. Thanks, Marcus, I smiled warmly. Could you have someone bring my family some water? They've had a rough few days in their accommodations. We were seated at the best table on the terrace, overlooking both the ocean and the shabby town below where they'd been staying. A photographer discreetly captured photos. For the resort's social media, Camilla had explained with a wink. Ella, Gemma leaned forward, her voice trembling. We need to talk about how you left me stranded on an island? I took a sip of champagne. Or about how you thought I'd be desperate enough to come crawling back. We were trying to help you, my mother hissed. You've always been so cold, so unwilling to support your sister. Like when she needed bail money for fraud charges? I asked pleasantly. Or when her crystal healing app investors sued her? Those kinds of support? My father's face reddened. Now listen here. No, you listen. My voice stayed calm, but every head at nearby tables turned. Did you know Edison's been trying to thank me properly for 5 years, for jumping into rapids to save his teenage son while everyone else just watched? But I never wanted recognition or rewards. I smiled. Funny how life works out, though, isn't it? Miss Ella? Stephanie appeared. I hate to interrupt, but there's a small situation with your family's hotel booking. Oh? I raised an eyebrow. It seems their credit card was declined, and given the rumors circulating about their behavior... She let the sentence hang. My mother's face went pale. What rumors? Camilla slid her tablet across the table. On it was a local news site with the headline, Wealthy Family Abandons, Daughter on Island. You won't believe what happened next. The story's going viral, Camilla said cheerfully. Especially the part about how the abandoned daughter turned out to be a secret hero who'd saved a prominent businessman's son. People love that twist. You can't, my father sputtered. Can't what? I asked. Share the truth? Oh, and Gemma? Those investors you've been courting for your pet accessories, they've been quite interested in your history of creative business practices. Gemma's face crumpled. You're ruining everything. No, I corrected gently. I'm just letting everything you've done speak for itself. Now, shall we order? I recommend the lobster. It's much better than what they served on the cruise ship. This isn't over, my mother warned, standing abruptly. You're right, I agreed, but not in the way you think. Stephanie, please show them out, and make sure they get the long route back to town, the one with no shade. I hear it's going to be especially hot today. As they were escorted away, Dylan appeared with Edison. That was intense, Dylan said, dropping into an empty chair. But also kind of awesome. Edison nodded approvingly. Sometimes the best revenge is simply holding up a mirror. And sometimes, Camilla added, showing me her tablet's growing view counts, the best mirror is making sure everyone else sees exactly what you've seen all along. I watched my family's retreating figures, remembering all the times they'd made me feel small, difficult, wrong. Now they were the ones shrinking, becoming tiny figures against the vast resort grounds they'd never belong in. So, I turned back to my friends, what's for dessert? The invitation arrived at my family's budget hotel on cream-colored cardstock, delivered by a uniformed resort messenger. I watched through binoculars from my terrace as Gemma snatched it from the front desk, her hands shaking as she read. You're really going to let them come back? Dylan asked, adjusting the telescope he'd set up beside me. Trust me, I smiled. This is going to be worth it. The next morning, they arrived looking slightly more presentable, though still wilted from their trek up the mountain. The resort staff had arranged a beautiful brunch spread on the main terrace, complete with flowing champagne and fresh flowers. Ella, darling, my mother rushed forward with open arms. I stepped back smoothly. Please take your seats, I gestured to the table. I believe we have some things to discuss. Yes, we do, Gemma jumped in, her voice trembling. I've been thinking about everything, and I realize now how horrible we were. I was horrible. I really need your help, Ella. My investors are pulling out and... Because they discovered your history of fraud? I asked pleasantly, pouring champagne. Her face went white. How did you... know about the fake credentials, the stolen designs, the misplaced crowdfunding money? I took a sip. Amazing what people share when they realize they're not your only victims. Now see here, my father started, but Edison chose that moment to appear. Ella, is everything all right? He asked, resting a protective hand on my shoulder. Perfect, I smiled. My family was just about to explain why they thought abandoning me would be a good teaching moment. We didn't abandon you, my mother protested. We were trying to show you the importance of family loyalty. By leaving her on an island, Dylan appeared, phone in hand. Sorry, I'm recording this for posterity. Please continue explaining how that makes sense. My mother's face tightened. This is a private family matter. Oh, but it's not anymore, Camilla interrupted, sliding into a seat. See, people are fascinated by this story. The wealthy family who ditched their daughter because she wouldn't fund another scam? The daughter who turned out to be a secret hero? It's pure social media gold. You can't prove anything about my business, Gemma said desperately. I pulled out my laptop. Actually, your ex-partner was very helpful. Apparently, prison gave him a new perspective on honesty. He had quite a paper trail. I've already alerted the relevant authorities, Edison added mildly. They're quite interested in speaking with you, actually. My father stood abruptly. This is blackmail. No, I corrected. This is consequences, something you always said I needed to learn about, remember? Please, Gemma started crying. I'll lose everything. Like you planned for me to lose everything? I asked. $50,000, my entire savings. That was your goal, right? Leave me stranded until I gave in? We're your family, my mother whispered. No, I set down my glass. You're people who share my DNA. Family doesn't do what you did. Family doesn't spend years manipulating and gaslighting. Family doesn't abandon someone on an island as a lesson. Camilla's tablet chimed. Oh, look, the story just got picked up by national news. Should I have them include the part about the fraudulent investment scheme? You wouldn't, Gemma gasped. Try me, I smiled. I learned from the best after all. You taught me all about family loyalty, remember? What do you want? My father asked, defeated. Nothing, I stood up. That's what you never understood. I don't want anything from you, not anymore. I just want you to live with the consequences of your choices, just like you always said I should. Edison, I turned to him. Would you mind having security escort my former family out? I believe they have a long walk back to their hotel. With pleasure, he nodded to the waiting guards. Oh, and Mom? I called as they were led away. Remember that text you sent? Hope you can swim? Turns out I didn't need to, but watching you drown in your own mistakes has been educational. After they left, Dylan high-fived me. That was epic, though they seemed to break pretty easily. Bullies usually do, Camilla observed, when someone finally stands up to them. I watched through the windows as my family was escorted off the property, their shoulders slumped in defeat. Part of me felt hollow, but a stronger part felt free. You okay? Edison asked quietly. Yeah, I smiled. For the first time in years, I really am. Good, he checked his watch, because the press conference starts in an hour, and I think it's time the world met the real Ella. I straightened my shoulders, ready to tell my story, not as the family disappointment, but as the woman who'd saved herself. The press conference was supposed to be simple. Edison would introduce me, I'd share my story, and we'd control the narrative. But Gemma had other plans. She's ruining my life! The shriek cut through the resort's conference room just as Edison finished introducing me. My sister burst through the doors, mascara streaking down her face, clutching printouts of news articles. The reporters' cameras swiveled like hungry predators. Security, Edison started, but I touched his arm. No, I said quietly. Let her speak. My own sister, Gemma stumbled forward, waving the papers. She's always been jealous of me, always trying to sabotage my success. A reporter raised her hand. Miss, are you the sister who left her stranded on the island? She's twisting everything. Gemma spun toward the cameras. I'm an entrepreneur. I have vision. But Ella, she's always been difficult, always so superior with her responsible choices and her stable career. She made air quotes, voice dripping with disdain. Another reporter leaned forward. So you deny abandoning her here? We were teaching her a lesson about family. The room went silent. Cameras clicked rapidly. Could you elaborate on that lesson? The first reporter asked, pen poised. Gemma didn't notice the trap she was walking into. She wouldn't invest in my business. $50,000. That's nothing. She has it saved, just sitting there, being selfish. So yes, we left her here. She needed to learn about loyalty. By abandoning her on an island? A different reporter clarified. Stop saying abandoned, Gemma stamped her foot. We were coming back, eventually, once she learned. That's enough, my mother's voice cut through as she and my father rushed in. Gemma, stop talking. But the damage was done. The reporters were scribbling furiously, cameras rolling. Mrs. Kelly, one called out, did you send your daughter a text saying, hope you can swim after leaving her? My mother's face went rigid. No comment. Actually, Camilla stepped forward, tablet ready. I have the phone records right here, along with some fascinating documentation about previous incidents. Would anyone like to discuss the college fund theft attempt from 2015? You promised you'd never tell, Gemma whirled on me. You promised you'd keep quiet about that. Like you promised the crowdfunding investors you had a real product? I asked calmly. Or like you promised your last business partner before taking the startup money and vanishing? Those were misunderstandings, she screeched. I have the police reports, Camilla offered helpfully to the journalists, and the investor complaints, and the court documents. My father grabbed Gemma's arm. We're leaving, now. But she's destroying everything, Gemma yanked free. She's always been like this, perfect little Ella, making the rest of us look bad. You know what? I'm glad we left you here. I hope you... Hope I what? I stood up. Hope I learned my lesson? I did, just not the one you intended. The reporters were transfixed. One raised his hand. Miss Ella, how does it feel knowing your family tried to strand you, only to have you end up in a better position? I looked at my family, Gemma's mascara-streaked face, my mother's rigid posture, my father's impotent anger. They seemed smaller somehow, less frightening. It feels like karma, I said simply. They wanted to teach me about consequences. Instead, they taught everyone else about who they really are. This isn't over, my mother hissed, dragging Gemma toward the door. Actually, it is, Edison stepped forward. My security team will escort you off the property, and given the circumstances, I've arranged for your cruise ship rebooking to be delayed by about 10 days. You can't, my father started. I can, Edison smiled. I own quite a few shares in the cruise line. Amazing what actual business success can buy you. As security led them away, Gemma's voice echoed back. I hate you, Ella. I've always hated you. The reporters erupted with questions, but Dylan's voice cut through as he approached the podium. Can I say something? He asked. At Edison's nod, he faced the cameras. 5 years ago, I was drowning in rapids. Everyone on the shore just watched, everyone except Ella. She jumped in without hesitation, saved my life, and then disappeared before we could even thank her properly. He turned to me. That's who she really is, and they threw her away. The room fell silent. Well, the first reporter finally said, I think we have our headline. Later, watching the sunset from my villa, Camilla showed me the first online stories. Family's revenge plot backfires, abandoned daughter reveals years of manipulation, and hidden hero, the woman who saved a life and found justice. How does it feel? She asked softly. I thought about Gemma's screaming confession, about my mother's rigid face, about my father's impotent rage. Like I can finally breathe, I answered. The dominoes fell faster than anyone expected. 3 days after the press conference, Camilla burst into my villa waving her tablet. You need to see this, she said, pulling up a video. It was Gemma's biggest investor, a tech mogul, giving a statement. In light of recent revelations, we are withdrawing all support from the project. Furthermore, we're cooperating with authorities regarding potentially fraudulent representations made during investment meetings. I scrolled through more headlines. Serial entrepreneur or serial scammer. Investigation reveals pattern of fraud, and Family's Island abandonment scheme leads to criminal investigation. There's more. Camilla swiped to another article. Your father's company is accepting his resignation after the PR nightmare. Apparently, abandoning your daughter on an island doesn't align with their family-friendly corporate values. A knock at the door interrupted us. Stephanie entered, looking unusually pleased. "Your mother has been removed from the country club board," she announced. "Unanimous vote. They're also canceling her charity gala chairmanship." "How do you know all this?" I asked. "Small world," she smiled. "My sister manages events there. She said your mother tried to spin the story as a family misunderstanding, but the security footage I sent them of her screaming at our staff didn't help her case." My phone buzzed. Another text from Gemma. "They're freezing my accounts. Mom and Dad can't help because their retirement fund is gone. This is all your fault. I hope you're happy." "Are you?" Dylan's voice came from the terrace. He'd been swimming in my private pool. "Happy, I mean?" I considered the question. "I'm peaceful." "Good." Edison appeared in the doorway. "Because there's one more thing you need to see." He led us down to the dock. The cruise ship that had abandoned me was returning to port, but this time I watched from a position of power, not powerlessness. "Your family's attempting to board," Edison explained, "but there seems to be some confusion with their tickets." We watched as my parents and Gemma argued with the ship's staff. Even from a distance, their desperation was visible. "I'm sorry," the cruise director's voice carried clearly, "but we have strict policies about passengers who've been involved in criminal incidents. Perhaps you could try the ferry?" "The ferry?" My mother's shriek echoed across the water. "Do you know who we are?" "Yes," the director replied coldly. "We've seen the news." Camilla filmed quietly on her phone as they were escorted away from the ship. "This'll make a great follow-up story. Karma comes full circle, family stranded after failed revenge plot." "Don't," I said softly. "They've lost enough." "You're kinder than they deserve," Edison observed. "No," I corrected. "I'm exactly who I've always been. They just never saw it." As if on cue, my father spotted us watching. He nudged my mother and Gemma. They stared up at us, me in my designer resort wear, surrounded by powerful people who actually cared about me, standing literally and figuratively above them. "Should we?" Stephanie gestured to the security team. "No need," I smiled. "They can't reach me anymore. Not up here." Dylan cannonballed into the ocean below, splashing nearby tourists who laughed and joined in. The joy and lightness of the scene contrasted perfectly with my family's defeated postures. "Miss Ella," a resort staff member approached. "The youth swimming program directors would like to know if you're still planning to give a water safety demonstration tomorrow." "Wouldn't miss it," I replied, watching my family drag their designer luggage toward the ferry terminal. "You know," Edison said thoughtfully, "we could use someone with your instincts and integrity full-time. The resort's community outreach program needs a director." "Are you offering me a job?" "I'm offering you a future, one you've earned through your own actions, not family obligations." I looked around, at Camilla's proud smile, Dylan's playful splashing, Stephanie's efficient competence, and Edison's quiet strength. Then I looked down at my family, growing smaller as they walked away. They thought leaving me here would break me, I mused. Instead, it brought me home. "Speaking of home," Camilla grinned, "wait until you see the beachfront villa Edison's adding to your job package." "I haven't said yes yet." "But you will," Dylan called from the water, "because you belong here." As my family disappeared from view, I felt the last weight lift from my shoulders. They'd tried to teach me about family loyalty, but I'd learned something far more valuable. Sometimes the family you choose is better than the family you're born into. "So," Edison raised an eyebrow, "shall I have HR draw up the paperwork?" I smiled, watching the sunset paint the ocean gold. "Yes, I think I'll stay right here." "Good," Camilla hugged me, "because we weren't letting you leave anyway." For the first time in my life, I felt truly, completely free. The last ferry horn echoed across the water as I stood on my villa's terrace, watching my family board with their reduced luggage, most of their designer bags sold to pay for basic tickets. They didn't look up at the resort anymore. They'd stopped trying days ago. Final paperwork's done, Camilla announced, joining me with 2 glasses of champagne. The last investor lawsuit against Gemma just got filed. Your parents' retirement fund is officially gone, all lost to her brilliant business ideas. How are you feeling about that? Dylan asked, sprawled on a lounger nearby. I considered the question carefully. Honestly, nothing. And that's the strangest part. Because you're free, Edison said, appearing with Stephanie. True freedom isn't about revenge, it's about indifference. The ferry's horn blew again. As it pulled away from the dock, I raised my glass. To lessons learned. Though not the ones they intended, Stephanie added with a smile. My phone buzzed one last time, a final message from my mother. You've destroyed this family. No, I typed back, then showed the others my response. You did that long ago. I just stopped playing along. I blocked their numbers before any replies could come through. Ready for your first official day? Edison asked, gesturing to the resort's main building where my new office waited. Almost, I said. There's something I need to do first. An hour later, I stood at the exact spot where they'd left me that first day. The market stalls were still there, local artisans selling their wares. I approached the same vendor I'd been browsing when the cruise ship departed. I remember you, Aita, she said warmly. The girl they left behind. Look how well you landed. I bought the bracelet I'd been looking at that day, a simple hand-woven design that represented new beginnings. As I fastened it around my wrist, Dylan joined me. Dad told me what really happened that day in the rapids, he said quietly. How close I came to dying, how everyone else just watched, but you jumped in without hesitation. Anyone would have— No, he cut me off. They wouldn't. Just like anyone wouldn't have handled this past week the way you did. You could have destroyed them completely. Instead, you just let them face reality. Reality is usually punishment enough, I smiled. Miss Ella! A group of local kids ran up, wearing the resort's swim program t-shirts. Are we still having lessons today? Wouldn't miss it, I assured them. Meet you at the pool in 20 minutes? As they ran off excited, Camilla approached with her tablet. The story's gone international. People are calling it the ultimate karma tale. Everyone wants interviews. No interviews, I shook my head. Let's focus on what matters. The swim program, the community outreach, the future. Speaking of future, Edison joined us. The contractor finished your office. Corner view of the ocean, just as promised. We walked back toward the resort together. My chosen family now. The one I'd built through actions rather than blood. You know what I realized? I said as we climbed the steps. They thought leaving me here would make me desperate, make me swim back to them, but I never needed to swim anywhere, because you were already exactly where you needed to be, Stephanie finished, holding open the door. My new office was perfect, windows overlooking both the ocean and the mountains, filled with light and possibility. On the desk sat a framed photo from the youth program's first swimming lesson, kids beaming as they learned to stay afloat. Ready to start? Edison asked. I touched the hand-woven bracelet, thinking about journeys and endings and beginnings, about how sometimes the worst things people do to us lead us exactly where we're meant to be. Actually, I smiled, I already have. Through the window, I could just barely see the ferry disappearing over the horizon, carrying away the last remnants of my old life. But I wasn't watching it go. Instead, I was watching the kids gather for their swim lesson, eager to learn how to stay afloat in deep water. Funny thing about swimming, I said to no one in particular. The hardest part isn't staying above water. It's trusting that you can. Dylan grinned. Good thing you've got that part figured out. I looked around at my new family, the one I'd chosen, the one that chose me back, at the life I'd built from their attempt to break me. Yeah, I agreed, picking up my new office keys. I really do. They hadn't just failed to drown me. They'd taught me I could fly.
The December wind cut through my thin jacket as I stood on the doorstep of the Mason family estate. watching my mother-in-law's perfectly manicured hand wave goodbye before she slammed the heavy oak door in my face. I placed one hand protectively over my growing belly, trying to process how quickly everything had fallen apart. My name is Emma Chen, and at 28 years old, I found myself pregnant, alone, and locked out of what had been my home for the past 3 years. But Victoria Mason had no idea what she'd just done, or who she was really dealing with. "You'll thank me for this later, James," I heard her say through the door to my husband. "She was never good enough for you. No connections, no family money, just some scholarship girl who got lucky." I waited for James to defend me, to say something. Anything. But his silence spoke volumes. The same silence that had grown between us over the past few months as his mother's influence poisoned everything we'd built together. The irony was, Victoria Mason was right about one thing. I had gotten lucky, but not in the way she thought. 3 years ago, I was a software engineer fresh out of MIT, working on an AI algorithm that could revolutionize supply chain management. James and I met at a tech conference where I was presenting my research. He was there representing his family's shipping company, Mason Global Logistics. It was love at first sight, at least that's what I thought. The wedding was rushed, small, intimate. Victoria never approved, but James had insisted. "We don't need their blessing," he'd said back then. "We just need each other." Those words felt hollow now as I stood in the cold, watching my breath form clouds in the frigid air. What Victoria didn't know was that for the past year, I'd been building something in secret. Something that would change everything. The algorithm I'd been developing wasn't just theoretical anymore, it was ready. And while Victoria was busy planning charity galas and criticizing my common background, I'd been quietly meeting with investors, securing patents, and laying the groundwork for my own company. I pulled out my phone, my fingers trembling slightly from both cold and adrenaline, and dialed the one person I knew I could count on. "Maya, it's happening." They kicked me out. Maya Chen, my older sister and brilliant corporate lawyer, didn't miss a beat. "I'm on my way. The apartment is ready. Time to launch Plan B." I could hear her grabbing her keys, the determination in her voice giving me strength. Maya had always been my rock, especially after we lost our parents in an accident 10 years ago. She was the one who'd encouraged me to keep working on my algorithm even after I married James. "Never put all your eggs in one basket, little sister," she'd warned me, especially not a golden one. As I waited for Maya, I thought about the last conversation I'd had with James earlier that morning. He found the prenatal vitamins in my drawer, and instead of being happy about the baby, he looked worried. "Did you plan this?" he'd asked, his voice tight. "Is this some kind of trap?" The accusation had stunned me. Trap? "James, we're married. We talked about having children." "Mother thinks the timing is suspicious," he'd said, running his hands through his hair. "With the company's merger coming up." I should have seen it then, how deeply his mother's paranoia had infected him. How the sweet, supportive man I'd marry had become just another puppet in Victoria Mason's grand plan for her family's dynasty. Maya's sleek black Tesla pulled up to the curb, and she jumped out, wrapping me in a fierce hug. "Those pretentious snobs," she muttered, helping me with my bags. "Just wait until they see what's coming." As we drove away from the Mason estate, I felt a strange sense of calm settle over me. Victoria thought she was protecting her family's empire by getting rid of me. She had no idea she'd just set in motion exactly what I'd been waiting for. Maya glanced at me as she navigated through the city's streets. "You okay? The stress isn't good for the baby." I placed a hand on my belly, feeling a small kick. "I'm fine. Better than fine, actually. Remember how you told me to always have a backup plan?" She nodded, turning onto the highway that led to her downtown apartment building. "Well," I said, pulling out my laptop, "I have something to show you. That algorithm I've been working on, it's not just theoretical anymore. I've been running simulations using Mason Global's shipping data that James gave me access to when we first got married." Maya's eyes widened. "Emma, what exactly have you been up to?" I opened my laptop, showing her the results of my latest simulation. I've created an AI-driven logistics system that can predict supply chain disruptions before they happen, optimize shipping routes in real time, and reduce costs by up to 40%. I call it chain sight. "And you've tested this using Mason Global's data?" I nodded. "James gave me full access to their systems when we got married. He wanted me to understand the family business. Victoria was furious about it, but he insisted. I've been running simulations for months, perfecting the algorithm. Maya pulled into her building's parking garage, turning to face me fully. Emma, do you realize what you have here? I do, I said, closing my laptop. And so do the venture capitalists I've been meeting with. They're ready to fund Chainsite's launch. We're just waiting for my signal. Maya's face broke into a wide grin. And Victoria just gave you the perfect reason to launch. As we rode the elevator to Maya's penthouse apartment, I thought about Victoria's smug face as she pushed me out the door. She thought she was getting rid of a gold digger, a nobody who trapped her precious son. Instead, she just freed me to become her biggest competitor. Maya's apartment was everything the Mason estate wasn't: modern, minimal, and warm. She'd set up the guest room for me weeks ago, just in case. My sister had always been the pragmatic one. Get some rest, she said, helping me unpack. Tomorrow, we start making calls. It's time to show the Masons what a nobody from nowhere can really do. That night, as I lay in bed, my hand resting on my growing belly, I felt stronger than I had in months. Victoria thought she was protecting her family's legacy. Instead, she'd just given me the push I needed to build my home. My phone buzzed. A text from James. Mother says this is for the best. I'm sorry. I didn't respond. Let him think I was broken, devastated. Let Victoria believe she'd won. They had no idea what was coming. The next morning, I woke up to an email from my lead investor, Sarah Chen, no relation, though we joked about it. Ready when you are. Say the word and we'll start the funding round. I looked out Maya's window at the city skyline, where Mason Global's headquarters dominated the view. Soon, they'd see my company's name up there too. But first, I had work to do. Maya was already up, making breakfast and taking calls. She cleared her schedule for the next week to help me set everything in motion. As I walked into the kitchen, she handed me a prenatal vitamin and a glass of orange juice. The team's ready, she said, hanging up her phone. We can file the incorporation papers today. You're sure about this? I took the vitamin, thinking about James' accusation yesterday. Had I planned this? Not exactly. But I'd been prepared for it thanks to Maya's constant warnings and my own instincts. I'm sure, I said, pulling out my laptop. Victoria wants a war. Let's give her one. Maya smiled, that fierce, protective smile I'd known all my life. Then let's get to work. The next few days passed in a blur of meetings, calls, and paperwork. Maya's law firm handled everything efficiently, and by the end of the week, Chainsite was officially incorporated. The initial funding round was oversubscribed. It seemed every investor in town wanted a piece of what we were building. James tried calling several times, but I let everything go to voicemail. His messages grew increasingly anxious as news of Chainsite's incorporation spread through the business community. Emma, what are you doing? His last message demanded. Mother's furious. She says you stole company secrets. We could sue you for this. I played the message for Maya, who just laughed. Let them try. Every bit of data you used was legally accessed with full permission. We have James's emails proving it. She was right, of course. I documented everything meticulously, knowing this day might come. Victoria Mason hadn't raised an idiot for a son. She just never expected his wife to be smarter than he was. As I ended part one of my story here, I was just getting started. Victoria Mason thought she'd taught me a lesson about knowing my place. Instead, she'd given me exactly what I needed: freedom to build something that would change everything, not just for me and my baby, but for the entire industry she thought she controlled. The real question was, what would happen when she realized exactly what she'd done? 6 months after Victoria Mason slammed her door in my face, I stood in front of a packed conference room at the National Logistics Convention. My hand rested on my now visible baby bump as I prepared to demonstrate Chainsite to the industry's biggest players. The irony wasn't lost on me that Mason Global's leadership team sat in the front row, Victoria and James among them. Victoria's face was set in its usual mask of cold disdain, but I could see the tension in her jaw. James just looked pale. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, my voice steady despite the flutter of movement in my belly. What you're about to see will revolutionize how we think about supply chain management. As I launched into the demonstration, showing real-time optimization of shipping routes and predictive analytics that could save companies millions. I watched Victoria's expression shift from dismissive to concerned. By the time I showed the cost-saving projections, she was gripping her armrests so tightly her knuckles had turned white. The past 6 months had been intense. Maya and I had worked around the clock, building the company from her penthouse apartment. Our team grew quickly, brilliant engineers and developers who believed in the vision. The pregnancy hadn't been easy, but every kick from my baby felt like a reminder of why I was doing this. Victoria had tried everything to stop us. First came the cease and desist letters, claiming I'd stolen proprietary information. Maya's legal team shut that down quickly, producing documentation of every permission James had given me to access their systems. Then came the whisper campaign. Rumors about my character, my background, suggestions that I was unstable. But Victoria had underestimated how much the industry was ready for change. Chainsite's early trials with smaller shipping companies had produced results that couldn't be ignored. Any questions? I asked as I concluded the presentation. The room erupted with raised hands, but Victoria was already on her feet. This is nothing but smoke and mirrors, she announced, her voice sharp. Ms. Chen claims her system can reduce costs by 40%, but where's the proof? Mason Global has been in this industry for generations. We know what's possible and what isn't. I smiled, having anticipated this moment. Excellent question, Mrs. Mason. Perhaps your son can help answer it, since he's seen the system in action. All eyes turned to James, who looked like he wanted to disappear. He knew exactly what I was referring to. The trial runs I'd done using Mason Global's data, the ones he'd enthusiastically approved before his mother poisoned everything. I don't know what you're talking about, he stammered, but his face betrayed him. Really? I pulled up a series of emails on the screen behind me. Because according to these messages, you were quite impressed with the initial results. In fact, you called them revolutionary and suggested implementing them company-wide. Victoria's face turned scarlet. The emails were damning, not just for their content, but because they proved every accusation she'd made about me stealing company secrets was false. James had been my biggest supporter, right up until she turned him against me. After the presentation, investors swarmed around me. Maya handled most of them, her legal expertise proving invaluable as we fielded partnership offers and investment proposals. I noticed James hovering at the edge of the crowd, looking lost. Finally, he approached me as the room began to clear. Victoria was nowhere in sight. Emma, he said quietly, can we talk? I looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time in months. The man I'd fallen in love with seemed smaller somehow, diminished. About what, James? About how you let your mother kick out your pregnant wife? Or about how you've spent the last 6 months trying to destroy what I've built? He flinched. I didn't know about the baby, about any of it. Mother said. That's the problem. I cut him off. Mother said, Mother thinks, Mother knows best. When was the last time you thought for yourself? The company's stock dropped 15% after your presentation, he said, changing tactics. Mother's furious. The board is asking questions. Maybe we could work something out. I laughed, though there was no humor in it. Now you want to work something out? After everything. You're still my wife, he said, reaching for my hand. I pulled away. Actually, I'm not. The divorce papers were delivered to your office this morning. Maya's firm handled everything. You should read them carefully, especially the part about the baby. His face fell. Emma, please. That's my child, too. Yes, I agreed, and you'll have visitation rights once they're born. But you lost the right to be their father the day you chose your mother over your family. Maya appeared at my elbow, right on cue. Everything okay here? James stepped back, his shoulders slumping. I'm sorry, Emma, for everything. I'm not, I said honestly. Everything that happened led me here. Chainsite is already revolutionizing the industry, and we're just getting started. So thank your mother for me, James. She gave me exactly what I needed, freedom. As he walked away, Maya squeezed my arm. You okay? I nodded, watching James disappear into the crowd. Better than okay. Did you see the partnership offers we got today? 6 major shipping companies want to implement Chainsite immediately. Maya confirmed. And that's just the beginning. Victoria's worst nightmare is coming true. You're not just competing with Mason Global. You're going to surpass them. 2 weeks later, I sat in my new office reviewing the latest performance reports. Chainsite was growing faster than even our most optimistic projections had predicted. Companies were switching to our system in droves, drawn by the cost savings and efficiency improvements. Mason Global's stock had continued to fall as investors questioned their ability to compete in the changing landscape. I'd heard through industry gossip that Victoria had been forced to step down from the board, though she was fighting it every step of the way. A knock at my door interrupted my thoughts. Maya entered, waving a tablet. "You need to see this," she said, pulling up a news article. The headline made me catch my breath. Mason Global Logistics announces major restructuring. CEO James Mason steps down. "He's leaving the company?" I asked, scanning the article. Maya nodded. Word is he's starting his own venture, something about embracing innovation and new directions in logistics. I sat back, absently rubbing my belly where the baby was kicking. His mother must be beside herself. "Oh, she is," Maya grinned. "But that's not all. Look at the last paragraph." I read it and felt a strange mix of emotions. In a surprising move, James Mason has expressed interest in potential collaborations with emerging industry leaders, specifically citing Chainsite's revolutionary approach to supply chain management. "What do you think?" Maya asked. "Should we hear him out?" I thought about it, remembering the man I've fallen in love with, the one who'd been excited about innovation before his mother's influence took over. Maybe, free from Victoria's control, that man still existed somewhere. Set up a meeting, I decided. But make it clear, this is business, nothing more. If he wants to work with Chainsite, he'll need to prove himself just like anyone else. Maya nodded, understanding perfectly. And Victoria? I smiled, thinking of my former mother-in-law and her grand plans for her family's legacy. She can watch from the sidelines as everything she tried to protect gets transformed by the nobody from nowhere she threw out in the cold. The baby kicked again, stronger this time, and I placed both hands on my belly. In 2 months, I'd be a mother myself. But unlike Victoria, I would teach my child that true legacy isn't about maintaining control. It's about having the courage to create something new. Victoria had thought she was protecting her son's inheritance when she kicked me out that cold December day. Instead, she triggered a revolution in the industry she thought she controlled, led by the very person she underestimated most. As I looked out my office window at the city skyline, where the Chainsite logo now shone as brightly as Mason Global's, I couldn't help but smile. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about soaring higher than your enemies ever thought possible. The sound of my sister Rachel's words still echoed in my ears as I sat in my car outside our family home. The same house where we'd grown up, where Mom had raised us after Dad died, where everything had fallen apart in the past year. My name is Emma Mitchell, and at 29, I'd just been disowned by my family because of lies my sister had spent months carefully crafting. The irony was, I had proof that would destroy her carefully constructed narrative. I just wasn't ready to use it yet. The USB drive felt heavy in my jacket pocket, Mom's final gift to me, given in secret during one of her last lucid moments in the hospital. "Not yet, Emmy," she'd whispered, her voice weak but her eyes sharp. "Wait until you really need it. You'll know when." That was 3 weeks ago. Now Mom was gone, buried just yesterday, and Rachel had finally succeeded in what she'd been working toward for months, turning our entire family against me. I started the car, catching a glimpse of Rachel watching from the living room window. She'd always been the perfect daughter, the one who'd stayed in our hometown, married well, given Mom grandchildren. Meanwhile, I'd moved to New York, built a career in investigative journalism, lived life on my own terms. It hadn't been a problem until Mom got sick. Pancreatic cancer, aggressive, terminal from the start. I'd flown home immediately, ready to help however I could. But Rachel had other plans. "Mom needs stability right now," she'd said, her voice dripping with false concern. "Your busy life in New York, your unpredictable schedule, it's too disruptive. I'll handle her care." And so it began. Every time I tried to visit, Rachel told me Mom was too tired. When I called, Mom was always sleeping or in too much pain to talk. Slowly, surely, Rachel began spinning her web of lies. She told our aunts I was too busy with my career to care about Mom. Told our cousins I refused to help with medical bills. Told our family friends I'd abandoned Mom when she needed me most. And all the while, she controlled access to Mom so completely that I couldn't defend myself. I pulled away from the curb, memories of the past year flooding back. The desperate attempts to see Mom, the blocked phone calls, the text messages Rachel sent pretending to be Mom. Messages I later learned Mom never knew about. But what Rachel didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I'd spent those months doing what I do best: investigating, documenting, gathering evidence. Mom's nurses had been particularly helpful, especially after they witnessed Rachel's behavior firsthand. "Your sister's been intercepting your cards and letters," Maria, Mom's favorite nurse, had told me during one of my few successful hospital visits. "Your mom keeps asking why you never write." That was when I'd started keeping records, dates, times, witnesses, every instance of Rachel's interference. I'd even managed to get security camera footage from a hospital showing Rachel throwing away the care packages I sent. The USB drive shifted in my pocket as I turned onto the highway. Mom had given it to me during my last visit, just 2 days before she slipped into the coma that would claim her life. Rachel had been at her kid's soccer game, and I'd finally had a moment alone with Mom. "I know what she's been doing," Mom had said, her voice barely a whisper. Maria told me everything, but confronting her now would only make things worse. She'd pressed the small drive into my hand. "This is your insurance policy, Emmy. Use it wisely." I hadn't watched it yet. Part of me was afraid of what I'd find, but another part knew Mom was right about timing. Rachel had spent a year building her narrative, the devoted daughter caring for our dying mother while the selfish sister abandoned her family. Dismantling that story would take more than just accusations. My phone buzzed with a text from Maria. "You okay?" That scene at the house looked pretty intense. I pulled into a coffee shop parking lot to respond. Maria had become my ally throughout this ordeal, keeping me updated on Mom's condition when Rachel blocked my access, making sure Mom knew I was trying to be there. "I'm fine," I typed back. Rachel finally did it, convinced everyone I'm the villain in her story. But Mom left me something that might change everything. Maria's response was immediate. The USB drive, she told me about it, said it would show the truth when the time was right. I ordered a coffee and found a quiet corner table. My laptop was in my bag. I could watch it now, finally see what Mom had left me. But her words echoed in my mind. "Wait until you really need it." Instead, I pulled out my reporter's notebook. Old habits die hard, and began writing everything down. The scene at the house today, Rachel's accusations, the family's reactions. I learned long ago that details matter, especially when you're dealing with someone who twists the truth. Rachel had been clever. I had to give her that. She'd started small, planting seeds of doubt about my character, my commitment to family. Then, as Mom got sicker, the lies grew bigger. Emma's too busy with her career to help with Mom's care. Emma refuses to contribute to the medical expenses. Emma doesn't even call or visit. Each lie built on the last, creating a picture of a heartless daughter who'd abandoned her dying mother. The fact that I'd been sending money monthly, calling daily, though Rachel usually blocked my calls, and flying home every chance I got, though Rachel usually prevented me from seeing Mom, didn't matter. Perception had become reality. My coffee grew cold as I wrote, documenting every detail of how Rachel had systematically turned our family against me. Aunt Sarah, who'd once been like a second mother to me, now couldn't look me in the eye. Cousin Mike, who'd been my best friend growing up, had blocked my number. Even our childhood neighbors, the Petersons, had turned away when they saw me at the funeral. The ultimate betrayal had come today when Rachel had gathered the family to read a letter she claimed Mom had written before she died. A letter that painted me as a heartless, selfish daughter who cared more about my career than my dying mother. I'd known immediately the letter was fake. The phrasing wasn't Mom's. The sentiments didn't match our last conversation. Even the signature was wrong. But Rachel had timed it perfectly, presenting it when emotions were raw from the funeral, when everyone was looking for someone to blame for their grief. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Maria. "Just so you know, that letter Rachel read today. Your mom never wrote anything like that. I was with her those last weeks. The only thing she wrote was a note telling you she was proud of you." I smiled sadly. Maria had been there through everything, watching Rachel's manipulation with growing concern. She'd even offered to speak up, to tell the family the truth, but I'd asked her not to. Rachel would only twist it, claim Maria was lying out of loyalty to me. No, this had to be handled carefully. Mom had taught me that sometimes the best defense isn't an immediate reaction, but a carefully planned response. Patience, she'd always said, is more powerful than anger. The USB drive seemed to grow heavier in my pocket. What had Mom left me? What truth was she waiting for me to discover? Back in my hotel room, I finally sat down with my laptop and the USB drive Mom had given me. My hands trembled slightly as I plugged it in, remembering her final words about it. The truth will hurt, Emmy, but sometimes that's necessary for healing. The drive contained a single video file, dated 3 weeks before Mom died. I took a deep breath and pressed play. Mom's face filled the screen, gaunt from chemotherapy, but her eyes clear and determined. She was in her hospital room. I recognized the pale blue walls and the small window behind her. Emma, my sweet girl, she began, her voice stronger than I remember from those final days. If you're watching this, then everything has happened as I feared it would. Rachel's lies have done their work, and you're probably feeling very alone right now. I paused the video, tears blurring my vision. Even at the end, Mom had known exactly what would happen. I wiped my eyes and pressed play again. I need you to understand something, Mom continued. I know everything Rachel has been doing. The blocked calls, the hidden letters, the lies she's been telling the family. Maria has kept me informed, and I've been watching, gathering my own evidence. The screen changed, showing security footage from a hospital. There was Rachel, intercepting my care packages at the nurse's station. Another clip showed her turning me away during a visit, telling me Mom was too sick to see anyone, then letting other family members in just minutes later. But that's not the worst of it. Mom's voice continued as the video returned to her face. I've discovered something much more serious. Rachel has been stealing from me, Emma. She's been forging my signature on checks, accessing my accounts without permission. My journalist's instincts kicked in immediately. I grabbed my notebook and started taking notes as Mom detailed the financial abuse. Dates, amounts, account numbers. Mom had documented everything. I've put all the evidence in a sealed envelope with my lawyer, Richard Stevens, Mom explained. Bank statements, forged checks, everything. But I didn't want to confront her while I was sick. I knew she'd twist it somehow, use my illness to manipulate the situation. The irony was staggering. While Rachel had been painting me as the greedy, career-obsessed daughter, she'd been systematically draining Mom's accounts. There's more, Mom continued, her expression growing more serious. Rachel's been pressuring me to change my will, to leave everything to her. She claims you don't need the inheritance, that your success in New York means you don't deserve any help. But I've seen her bank statements, Emma. She and Tom are in serious financial trouble. The big house, the luxury cars, the lavish lifestyle, it's all built on debt. I paused the video again, remembering all the times Rachel had bragged about her perfect life. The 5-bedroom house in the best neighborhood, the expensive private schools for her kids, the fancy vacations. It had always seemed like she and Tom were living beyond their means on his middle management salary. The video continued with Mom pulling out a stack of papers. These are copies of Rachel's credit card statements and loan documents. Maria helped me get them. Turns out Rachel's been using my hospital room to receive her financial documents, probably to hide them from Tom. They're nearly bankrupt, Emma. That's why she's been stealing from me, why she's so desperate to control my estate. The screen showed close-ups of the documents, credit card statements showing hundreds of thousands in debt, past due notices for their mortgage, collection letters from various creditors. Rachel's perfect life was a house of cards on the verge of collapse. I've left instructions with Richard about how to handle this, Mom said. The evidence of Rachel's theft is there if you need it. But Emma, my brave, compassionate daughter, I'm leaving the decision to you. You can use this information to clear your name, to show the family who Rachel really is, or you can find another way. Mom's face grew softer, more tired. I know you, Emmy. You're like your father, you believe in justice, but you also believe in mercy. Whatever you decide to do with this information, I trust you to do what's right. The video ended with Mom looking directly into the camera, her eyes filled with love and trust. Remember, sweetheart, the truth isn't always about punishment. Sometimes it's about giving people a chance to face their own demons and find redemption. I sat in silence for a long time after the video ended, processing everything I'd learned. The USB drive contained more files, PDFs of the financial documents Mom had mentioned, photos of the forged checks, even audio recordings of Rachel pressuring Mom about the will. My phone buzzed with a text from Maria. "Did you watch it?" "Yes," I replied. "It's worse than we thought." "What are you going to do?" That was the question, wasn't it? I could take this evidence to the family right now, expose Rachel's lies and theft. It would destroy her, but it would also hurt her children, damage Tom's reputation, tear our family apart even more. Or I could do what Mom suggested, find another way. I opened my laptop again and started researching. If Rachel and Tom were really in that much debt, there had to be public records. Sure enough, I found tax liens, civil judgments, even a pending foreclosure notice on their house. The perfect life Rachel had built was about to implode, with or without my intervention. The question was whether I wanted to be the one holding the match. The next morning, I drove to Richard Stevens' law office. Mom's attorney was expecting me. She'd apparently left detailed instructions about what to do after she passed. "Emma," he greeted me warmly, leading me into his office. "I've been waiting for you to come. I assume you've watched the video." I nodded, taking a seat across from his desk. "I need your advice, Richard. Not just as Mom's lawyer, but as someone who's known our family for years." He leaned back in his chair, studying me carefully. "You're wondering whether to expose everything?" "Yes," I admitted. "Part of me wants to call a family meeting right now, show them the video, prove that Rachel's been lying. But your mother raised you better than that," he finished with a gentle smile. "She knew you'd struggle with this decision. That's why she left you this." He handed me another envelope, this one in Mom's familiar handwriting. Inside was a letter, dated just days before she slipped into the coma. "My dearest Emma, by now you know the truth about Rachel's actions. You're probably angry, hurt, and looking for justice. Those feelings are valid. You've been wronged in ways no sister should experience. But I want you to remember something about Rachel. When your father died, she was 12, old enough to understand what we'd lost but too young to process it healthily. While you found strength and independence, she developed a desperate need for control and security. I'm not excusing what she's done. The theft, the lies, the manipulation. These are serious wrongs that need to be addressed. But perhaps there's a way to do that without destroying her completely. You're an investigative journalist, Emmy. You know that sometimes the most powerful stories aren't about exposing wrongdoing, but about understanding why people do wrong and helping them find a better path. Whatever you decide, know that I trust your judgment and I'm proud of the woman you've become. All my love, Mom." I folded the letter carefully, feeling tears well up again. Even at the end, Mom had been thinking about both her daughters, trying to help us find our way back to each other. "There's something else you should know," Richard said, pulling out another file. "Your mother made some arrangements before she died. She knew about Rachel's financial troubles, so she set up a trust fund for her grandchildren's education. Rachel can't touch the money. It goes directly to the schools. She was protecting the kids, I realized." "Yes," Richard nodded. "And she left the family home to you, Emma, not to punish Rachel, but because she knew you'd do the right thing with it." I thought about our childhood home, filled with memories of happier times. Rachel's kids had practically grown up there too, spending afternoons with Mom while Rachel and Tom worked. Suddenly, I knew what I had to do. An hour later, I texted Rachel, "We need to talk. Come to Mom's house at 2. Come alone." Her response was quick and angry. "I have nothing to say to you." "Then just listen. Unless you want the family to see Mom's video." At exactly 2 p.m., Rachel's car pulled into the driveway. She looked terrible, eyes red from crying, hair uncombed, nothing like her usually perfect appearance. "What video?" she demanded as soon as she walked in. "What are you trying to pull?" Wordlessly, I opened my laptop and played Mom's recording. Rachel sank onto the couch as she watched, her face draining of color as Mom detailed her theft and lies. When it ended, we sat in silence for a long moment. "Are you going to show this to everyone?" she finally asked, her voice small and broken. "That depends on you," I replied. "Mom left me the house, Rachel, and I know about the foreclosure notice on your place." She flinched. "How did you?" "I'm a journalist. Finding information is what I do." I took a deep breath. "Here's what's going to happen. You and the kids can move in here." "What?" "The house is paid for. The utilities are manageable. You can get back on your feet, work out your debt issues. But there are conditions." Rachel's eyes narrowed. "What conditions?" First, you come clean to the family about the lies you told about me. All of them. Second, you get professional help, therapy to deal with your control issues, and financial counseling to handle the debt. Third, you pay back every penny you stole from Mom's accounts. And if I refuse? I opened another file on my laptop, the one with all the evidence of her theft. Then I go to the police with proof of your financial fraud. Your choice. Rachel's facade finally crumbled completely. She buried her face in her hands and began to sob. Deep, racking cries that seemed to come from somewhere ancient and wounded. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she choked out. The debt just kept growing, and I couldn't tell Tom, and then Mom got sick. I know, I said quietly. Mom knew too. That's why she left us a way to fix this. Over the next few hours, we talked, really talked, for the first time in years. Rachel confessed everything. The spiral of debt that had driven her to steal, the fear and jealousy that had fueled her lies about me, the overwhelming pressure of maintaining her perfect facade. 2 days later, we called a family meeting. Rachel stood up, shaking but determined, and told the truth. There were tears, recriminations, angry questions. But there was also finally honesty. 6 months later, Rachel and the kids are settled into Mom's house. She's in therapy, working through her grief and control issues. Tom filed for divorce when he learned about the hidden debt, but the kids are doing better with a more stable, honest mother. The family is healing slowly. Some relationships may never be the same, but new ones are forming based on truth rather than pretense. Yesterday, I found Rachel in Mom's study, looking at old family photos. Do you think she'd be proud of us? She asked softly. Of how we handled everything. I thought about Mom's final message about her belief in redemption over revenge. Yes, I said. I think this is exactly what she hoped for. The USB drive sits in my desk drawer now. A reminder that sometimes the hardest truths can lead to the most meaningful healing. Mom knew that all along. She just needed us to figure it out for ourselves. The crystal glasses clinked against fine china as Sarah Thompson, my sister, hosted another one of her elite family dinners. I sat quietly at the far end of the table, watching my brother-in-law Marcus, the self-proclaimed business genius, hold court with his usual audience of admirers. At 42, he wore his CEO status like a crown, each word dripping with the kind of confidence that only came from never having faced real failure. And that's how I closed the Anderson merger, he concluded, basking in the appreciative murmurs from our gathered family. Biggest deal of the quarter. Some people just understand business at a different level. His eyes flickered to me, lips curling into what my sister probably thought was a charming smile. I took another sip of wine, already knowing what was coming. These monthly family dinners had become Marcus's favorite stage for his particular brand of subtle cruelty. Speaking of business, he turned fully towards me now. Claire, how's that little, what do you call it, consulting thing of yours? It's going well, I replied evenly, noting how my sister Sarah straightened in her chair, eager for the show to begin. At 38, I learned that the best defense against Marcus's bards was calm dignity. Still working from home, right? He chuckled, swirling his expensive bourbon. You know, when Sarah told me her sister was in business too, I expected something more professional. How can anyone take you seriously without even a proper office? My mother shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. Dad suddenly found his roasted vegetables fascinating. They'd long ago chosen their side in the family dynamic, and it wasn't mine. My client seemed satisfied, I said, spearing a piece of perfectly cooked salmon. Marcus had insisted on catering from the city's most expensive restaurant, another chance to display his wealth. Clients? Marcus barked out a laugh. Is that what we're calling the local coffee shops and boutiques now? You know, Claire, if you ever want real business advice. Actually, a deep voice cut through the dining room. Our client list is quite impressive. All heads turned to Richard Anderson. Yes, that Anderson, of the merger Marcus had just been bragging about. He'd been quietly observing from the other end of the table, where Marcus had seated him as the guest of honor. In fact, Anderson continued, setting down his fork, my daughter's company has been trying to get on her waiting list for months. Claire's firm is rather selective about who they take on. The silence that fell over the table was absolute. I could hear Sarah's sharp intake of breath, See Marcus's face transition from confidence to confusion. Your daughter's company, Marcus managed, his voice suddenly less certain. Megan Anderson, CEO of Horizon Tech. Richard smiled warmly in my direction. Claire's firm handled the Matthews Group acquisition last year. Brilliant strategy, by the way. When Megan told me who was behind it, I could hardly believe someone so young had orchestrated such a complex deal. But then, real talent doesn't need corner offices to prove itself, does it? I watched the color drain from Marcus's face as realization dawned. The Matthews acquisition had been the talk of the business world, a $400 million deal that had transformed the tech landscape, and I'd orchestrated it from my home office, the one he'd been mocking moments before. I had no idea, Marcus stammered, his earlier bravado evaporating. Obviously, I replied softly, allowing myself a small smile. More wine, anyone? Sarah's hand shook as she gripped her glass, her perfect hostess composure cracking. Our mother's mouth had fallen open slightly, and Dad was now staring at me as if seeing me for the first time. Claire, Marcus started, his tone shifting to something almost ingratiating. Why did you ever mention that I handle major corporate acquisitions, that my little consulting thing advises Fortune 500 companies? I set down my wine glass carefully. You never asked, Marcus. You were too busy telling everyone how successful you are. Richard Anderson chuckled. And speaking of success, Claire, I hope you'll consider taking Horizon Tech on as a client. Megan's been quite persistent about wanting to work with you. Of course, Marcus jumped in. Anything for family. I'm sure Claire would be happy to. I'm afraid my schedule is quite full, I interrupted smoothly. But Mr. Anderson, please tell Megan to have her team send over the proposal. I'll review it personally. Marcus's face flushed red. The Anderson merger he'd been bragging about minutes ago, his biggest deal of the quarter, was worth less than half of what I handled for Matthews. And now his direct line to Richard Anderson was watching me with obvious respect while barely acknowledging Marcus's presence. Claire, Sarah found her voice, though it trembled slightly. Why didn't you tell us? All these years. Tell you what, Sarah. That while you and Marcus were mocking my little business, I was building one of the most respected consulting firms in the industry. That the home office you love to ridicule has closed deals worth billions? I dabbed my lips with the linen napkin. Would you have believed me? Or would you have just found new ways to diminish my success? The truth hung heavy in the air. They wouldn't have believed me. They'd been too invested in their narrative of Marcus as the family's business genius and me as the struggling younger sister who couldn't quite measure up. But your clothes. Sarah gestured weakly at my simple black dress. Your car, you live in that small house. Because I don't need to prove anything to anyone, I replied. Success speaks for itself. It doesn't need designer labels or luxury cars to be real. Richard Anderson nodded approvingly. That's precisely why your reputation in the industry is so sterling, Claire. No flash, all substance. The exact opposite of. His eyes flickered to Marcus briefly. Certain other approaches. Marcus's hand tightened around his bourbon glass. His carefully cultivated image of business brilliance was crumbling, and with it his standing in the family. But I wasn't done yet. Not even close. Mr. Anderson, I turned to Richard, ignoring Marcus's attempts to catch my eye. I'd love to hear more about Horizon Tech's expansion plans. Perhaps over dinner next week. I know a wonderful little place. The new French restaurant on Fifth. Marcus interjected desperately. I'm a member there. I cold. Actually, I smiled. I own it. One of my small side investments. Nothing like running a major corporation, of course, but it turns a nice profit. The restaurant Marcus had been trying to get a membership to for months. The one he bragged about finally getting into. He'd never known that every time he dined there, he'd been in my establishment. Sarah's wine glass slipped from her fingers, staining the pristine tablecloth red. But for once she didn't rush to clean it up. She was too busy staring at me, really seeing me for the first time in years. The thing about success, I continued, standing up from the table, is that it doesn't need an audience to be real. While you were all focused on Marcus's latest promotion or Sarah's country club membership, I was building something lasting, something real. I reached for my simple leather handbag, not designer, but handmade by an artisan I'd helped start their business. Thank you for dinner, Sarah. Mr. Anderson, I'll have my office contact you about that dinner next week. As I walked toward the door, I heard Marcus's strained voice. Claire, wait, perhaps we should discuss. Discuss what? I turned back briefly. How you've spent years mocking my business? How you treated me like a failure because I didn't brag about my success? Or maybe how you're suddenly interested in my little consulting thing now that you know who my clients are. The silence was deafening. Sarah had sunk back in her chair, her perfect dinner party in ruins. Our parents were looking anywhere but at me. And Marcus looked like a man watching his carefully constructed world crumble. Send me the dinner bill, Sarah, I called over my shoulder. I know how Marcus hates to spend money on family charity cases. The door closed behind me with a satisfying click, leaving them to digest not just their expensive catered meal, but the realization that they'd spent years underestimating exactly the wrong person. And this was just the beginning, because what they didn't know, what Marcus was about to find out, was that his company's upcoming merger, the one he'd been counting on to secure his position as CEO, was about to face an unexpected complication. One that had everything to do with the sister-in-law he dismissed for so long. The morning after the dinner party, my phone exploded with notifications. Text messages from Sarah, voicemails from Marcus, even emails from my parents, all suddenly desperate to clear up any misunderstandings. I smiled, remembering Marcus's face when Richard Anderson had revealed who I really was. But I wasn't interested in their belated attempts at reconciliation. I had a merger to stop. You see, what Marcus didn't know, what he'd been too arrogant to investigate, was that his company's upcoming merger wasn't just another deal. It was a carefully orchestrated plan, one I'd been developing for months. Claire, my assistant's voice came through the intercom of my home office. Yes, the same one Marcus had mocked. Mr. Anderson is on line 1. I picked up the phone, settling into my ergonomic chair. My little home office might not have impressed Marcus, but its technology rivaled any corporate headquarters. Richard, good morning. Claire, his warm voice filled the line. I must say, dinner last night was enlightening. Your brother-in-law seems to be having quite the morning. He's been trying to reach me since dawn. I could imagine. Marcus's entire career hinged on this merger, the one he thought would cement his position as CEO. The one he'd been bragging about at every family gathering for months. Has he figured it out yet? I asked, pulling up the merger documents on my triple monitors. Not yet, Richard chuckled, though he might want to take a closer look at who's been quietly buying shares in his company over the past 6 months. Ah yes, the investment firm that had been accumulating a significant stake in Marcus's company, the one operating through a series of shell companies, the one that through a complex web of corporations belonged to me. Claire. Sarah's name flashed on my phone again. I declined the call. Your sister seems persistent, Richard observed. They all are, now that they know. I signed off on another document, watching as my ownership percentage ticked up another fraction. Amazing how success changes people's perspective. The next few days were a symphony of panic from Marcus's corner. He finally started digging into the merger details, probably hoping to impress me with his business acumen. Instead, he discovered something terrifying. His company was being systematically purchased by an unknown entity. You have to help me. He cornered me outside my favorite coffee shop, not coincidentally, one of my first consulting clients. Claire, whatever bad blood there is between us, this is my career we're talking about. I took a sip of my artisanal latte. Funny, I thought it was just a little coffee shop last month when you mocked me for helping them expand. I was wrong, okay. He ran his hands through his perfectly styled hair, messing it up in a way Sarah would have hated. I was arrogant and stupid, but please, if this merger falls through, then what, Marcus? You'll have to work your way up like everyone else. Start something from scratch. Build a business without riding on your family name. His face paled. We both knew he'd never built anything himself. His CEO position had come through connections, not competence. The same connections he used to belittle me at every opportunity. My phone buzzed again. A notification from my legal team. Another block of shares acquired. We were getting close. The board meeting is next week, Marcus said desperately. They're expecting me to present the merger details. But this unknown buyer, if they gain controlling interest, then you'd be answerable to them. I finished for him. Imagine that. The great Marcus Thompson, having to justify his business decisions to someone else. The realization dawned in his eyes slowly. Claire, the buyer, it's not. My phone buzzed again. A text from Richard Anderson. Megan's team just sent over the Horizon Tech proposal. Impressive plans. Shame about Marcus's company. They would have made a good partner if their leadership was different. I showed Marcus the text, watched as the last pieces clicked into place. You're going to destroy everything I've built, he whispered. No, Marcus. I'm going to show you what real business looks like. I stood up, smoothing my simple but immaculately tailored dress. The board meeting is at 2 p.m. next Thursday, correct? Don't worry about preparing anything. I'll be handling the presentation. The week that followed was chaos. Sarah showed up at my house twice, begging me to reconsider. He's family, she pleaded, as if she hadn't spent years treating me like an embarrassment. My parents tried next. Think about what this will do to the family name. Dad argued. The same family name that hadn't stopped them from laughing at Marcus's jokes about my cute little business. But the real satisfaction came at the board meeting. I walked into the room Marcus had dominated for so long, taking my seat at the head of the table. The other board members, old men who'd never questioned Marcus's leadership, stared in confusion. Gentlemen, I began, as Marcus slumped in his chair. I represent Quantum Ventures, the investment firm that now holds a controlling interest in this company. We've reviewed the proposed merger extensively, and we have some concerns about the current leadership strategy. For the next hour, I methodically laid out every mistake Marcus had made, every rushed decision, every missed opportunity, every instance where he'd chosen flash over substance. The board members' expressions shifted from confusion to concern to outright alarm. Therefore, I concluded, our first act as majority shareholder will be to recommend new leadership. Someone who understands that real business success isn't about corner offices or country club memberships. It's about solid strategy, careful planning, and actual results. Marcus stood up, his face red. You can't do this. I built this company. Did you? I pulled out a folder. Because our analysis shows that company value has actually decreased under your leadership. The only thing keeping your position secure was this merger, a merger that as of this morning is no longer happening. The board erupted in chaos. Marcus tried to speak, but his voice was drowned out by angry shareholders demanding explanations. I sat quietly, watching years of his carefully constructed facade crumble. Oh, and Marcus, I added as he headed for the door, his career in shambles. You might want to start looking for a new country club membership. The one you have is about to be discontinued. The aftermath was everything I'd planned for. Marcus was forced to resign, his reputation in tatters. Sarah's social circle, the one she used to mock my simple lifestyle, suddenly discovered that the sister they dismissed was now controlling one of the city's largest companies. My parents called a family meeting, probably hoping to salvage something from the wreckage. I attended out of curiosity. You've made your point, Mom said, her voice trembling. Surely we can fix this as a family. I looked around the table. Marcus, without his designer suit and corporate swagger. Sarah, her perfect image tarnished by association. My parents, finally forced to acknowledge that their golden couple wasn't so golden after all. Fix what? I asked calmly. I simply did business. Isn't that what Marcus always wanted? For me to understand real business. But it's destroyed him, Sarah protested. His career, his reputation. No, I corrected her. His arrogance destroyed him. His need to diminish others to feel important. I just showed everyone what was already there. I stood up, gathering my things. The company will do better under new leadership. The shareholders will be happier, and Marcus, well, I hear there's good money in running a home-based business. If you can handle working without a proper office, that is. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. 5 years later, the company had doubled in value under new leadership. I'd merged it with Horizon Tech, creating one of the largest tech consultancies in the country. Marcus had tried starting his own firm, but without his corporate title and family connections, he discovered that business success required more than a corner office and an expensive suit. Sarah still hosted family dinners, though they were considerably less grand now. Sometimes, when I attended, I'd catch Marcus staring at my simple clothes and modest lifestyle with new understanding. He finally learned what I'd known all along. Real success doesn't need to announce itself. The small home office where I built my empire remained unchanged, but now, on its wall, hung a framed photo from that last board meeting. Marcus's face, as he realized that the sister-in-law he dismissed had orchestrated his downfall, was a masterpiece of karmic justice. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't just success. It's success they never saw coming. As for me, I still prefer working from home, still drive my reliable car, still live in my comfortable but modest house. But now, when Marcus passes me in his much-reduced circumstances, he understands a fundamental truth. True power isn't in what you show, it's in what you know. And I'd known, all along, exactly what I was building. The screen of my iPhone lit up with a number I hadn't seen in 2 years. My hands trembled slightly as I stared at it, memories flooding back of that devastating night when everything fell apart. Mark's name flashed insistently, demanding attention just like he always had. I let it ring 4 times before answering. Hello? My voice was steady, calmer than I felt. Sarah? Mark's voice cracked. He sounded different, desperate, broken. Nothing like the confident man who'd walked out on me 2 years ago after gambling away everything we built together. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and at 34, I was listening to my estranged husband cry into the phone after destroying our life savings and abandoning me with crushing debt. The irony wasn't lost on me. I've made a huge mistake, he sobbed. I should never have left. You have to let me explain. I gazed around my office, my real estate office, to be precise, taking in the awards lining the walls, the stack of closing documents on my desk, and smiled. 2 years ago, this conversation would have shattered me. Now it was just another Tuesday afternoon. Sure, Mark, I said, keeping my tone neutral. Let's meet. We can talk about everything. He exhaled sharply, relief evident in his voice. Really? God, Sarah, thank you. I knew you'd understand. You always understood. That's what he counted on. My understanding, my forgiveness, my tendency to see the best in people even when they showed me their worst. It's what had kept me with him through the small lies that became bigger, through the investment opportunities that drained our savings account, through the credit card debt he hid until it was too late. Cafe Luna, tomorrow at 2. I suggested, naming the coffee shop where he'd first told me about cryptocurrency, his eyes shining with dreams of quick riches. We can discuss everything there. Yes, perfect, he agreed quickly. I'll tell you everything, explain about the crypto market crash, about DeFi and how they promised. Tomorrow, Mark, I cut him off. We can talk about it all tomorrow. After hanging up, I leaned back in my chair, my mind drifting to that night 2 years ago. I'd come home from my job as a middle school math teacher to find Mark pacing our small apartment, his face ashen. It's gone, he'd said, his voice hollow. All of it. DeFi Max. The platform collapsed. They took everything. I'd stared at him, uncomprehending at first. What do you mean, everything? Our savings, the house down payment, the investment accounts, he'd swallowed hard. I thought I could double it, triple it, the returns they were promising. The room had started spinning as the magnitude of what he was saying hit me. Nearly $200,000. Every penny we'd saved over 8 years of marriage, gone in a crypto scam. But that wasn't even the worst part. There's more, he'd whispered, unable to meet my eyes. I took out some loans, credit cards in our names. I was trying to recover the losses, make it back before you noticed. $50,000 in credit card debt. He forged my signature, opened joint accounts, maxed them out chasing his crypto dreams. And now he was running away, leaving me to deal with the aftermath. I can't face this, he'd said, grabbing his pre-packed bag. I'm sorry, Sarah. I'm so sorry. I'd watched him walk out, too stunned to cry, too numb to stop him. The next day, I'd learned he'd quit his job at the tech startup where he worked. His phone was disconnected. He'd vanished, leaving me with nothing but debt and broken promises. But that night, sitting among the ruins of our life together, something had shifted inside me. I'd always been good with numbers, had always understood the power of compound interest and smart investments. I tried to tell Mark that get-rich-quick schemes never worked. That patient, strategic growth was the key to building wealth. He'd never listened. He wanted fast money, crypto millions, the excitement of high-risk trading. And now here I was at 32, starting over with less than nothing. The next morning, I called in sick to work and started making plans. First, I contacted a lawyer who specialized in debt and divorce cases. Then I called my brother Mike, who'd been in real estate for years. I need a change, I told him. I need to rebuild and I need to do it my way. Mike had listened, really listened, as I laid out my plan. I'd always helped him with the financial aspects of his real estate deals, understanding market analysis and investment potential. Now I wanted to do it myself. You'd be great at it, he'd said. But what about the teaching job? The benefits, the stability? I'll keep teaching for now, I'd replied. But nights, weekends, I'm going to study for my real estate license. I'm going to learn everything I can about property investment, about building real wealth. And I did. For 6 months, I worked my teaching job, studied real estate in every spare moment, and systematically negotiated with creditors to manage the debt Mark had left me with. I lived on rice and beans, sold everything I could, and put every extra penny toward paying down those credit cards. I got my real estate license on a Wednesday. By Friday, I had my first listing through Mike's connections. A month later, I had 3 more. It turned out my teaching skills translated perfectly to real estate. I could break down complex market data for clients, help them understand their options, guide them through the biggest purchase of their lives. Within a year, I paid off half the credit card debt through commissions and careful budgeting. 6 months after that, I opened my own boutique real estate firm specializing in investment properties and first-time homebuyers. I understood their fears, their dreams of building something secure. I'd lived it. Now, sitting in my office 2 years after Mark walked out, I was debt-free and running a successful business. My firm had just closed its 100th deal, and I had a waiting list of clients drawn to my reputation for honest, strategic investment advice. My phone buzzed with a text from Mark. "Thank you for agreeing to meet. I have so much to tell you." I smiled, picking up the manila envelope on my desk, the one I'd been saving for just this moment. Inside were documents that would show Mark exactly what I'd built while he was chasing crypto fantasies. Tomorrow at Cafe Luna, he'd learn that sometimes the slow, steady path was the one that led to real success. And maybe, just maybe, he'd finally understand what he'd walked away from. I opened my laptop and pulled up the latest property listings. I had a client meeting in an hour, a young couple looking to buy their first home. They'd saved carefully, done their research, and were ready to build their future the right way. Cafe Luna hadn't changed much in 2 years. The same rustic wooden tables, the same artisanal coffee menu, the same large windows overlooking downtown. I arrived 15 minutes early, choosing a table in the corner where Mark and I had once planned our future overlaps and dreams. I set my leather portfolio on the table, along with the manila envelope. My real estate company's logo, Mitchell Properties, was embossed in gold on both. A small detail, but one I knew wouldn't escape Mark's notice. He walked in at exactly 2 p.m., and I barely recognized him. Gone was the designer suit, the expensive watch, the carefully styled hair. Instead, he wore wrinkled chakis and a faded polo shirt that had seen better days. His face was thinner, with dark circles under his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights. "Sarah," he breathed, stopping short when he saw me. "You look amazing." I did look good, I knew that. Success had given me a confidence that no designer clothes could match. My navy blazer and silk blouse weren't just expensive. They were earned. "Sit down, Mark," I said, gesturing to the chair across from me. "Would you like some coffee?" He slumped into the seat, running a hand through his unkempt hair. "I actually can't afford." "I'll get it," I cut in, signaling the barista. "Still take your Americano with an extra shot." He nodded, looking almost ashamed. Once our drinks arrived, we sat in silence for a moment, the weight of 2 years hanging between us. "Sarah," he started. "Let me go first," I interrupted, opening my portfolio. "Before you tell me whatever you came to say, I want to show you something." I pulled out a series of photographs, laying them on the table one by one. Beautiful homes, modern office buildings, luxury apartments, all properties I'd helped clients buy or sell over the past 2 years. "These are just a few of my recent deals," I said calmly. "Mitchell Properties specializes in investment real estate. We've closed over 100 transactions in the past year alone." Mark's eyes widened as he looked at the photos, then at me, then back at the photos. Mitchell Properties. You started your own company? I nodded, pulling out more documents. After you left, I had two choices. I could let your mistakes destroy me, or I could rebuild. I chose to rebuild. His hands trembled slightly as he reached for his coffee. The debt? I know I left you with $50,000 in credit card debt. I finished for him. Yes, you did. Would you like to see how I handled that? From the manila envelope, I extracted a stack of credit card statements, all stamped paid in full and red ink. I laid them out one by one, watching his face as realization dawned. That's impossible, he whispered. How did you? The same way anyone builds real wealth, Mark. Hard work, smart investments, and patience. No crypto scams, no get-rich-quick schemes. Just strategy and dedication. I pulled out my company's latest financial statement. Mitchell Properties is now worth more than we ever had in savings. The difference is, this wealth is real. It's built on actual property, actual transactions, actual value. Mark slumped in his chair, his coffee untouched. I don't know what to say. When everything crashed with Defimax, I thought, I couldn't face you. I couldn't face anyone. So you ran, I said, my voice steady but cold. You left me to deal with the debt, the creditors, the shame. Do you know what that was like, Mark? Having to explain to everyone why my husband had disappeared. He flinched at my words. I was a coward, he admitted. I've spent the last 2 years trying to recover, trying to make it back, but everything I touched turned to dust. Every investment, every opportunity. Because you're still looking for the easy way, I said, pulling out one final document. You haven't learned anything. What's that? He asked, eyeing the paper warily. Divorce papers, I replied, sliding them across the table. Already filled out, just waiting for your signature. His face crumpled. Sarah, please, I came back because I still love you. We can start over, rebuild together. I've changed, I swear. I studied him for a moment, remembering all the times I believed his promises, all the times I'd given him another chance. But I wasn't that person anymore. You want to know the biggest lesson I learned after you left? I asked, leaning forward slightly. Real value isn't about quick returns or crypto millions. It's about building something sustainable, something that helps others while helping yourself. I tapped the stack of property photos. Every one of these transactions represents a family finding their dream home, an entrepreneur starting their business, an investor building their portfolio the right way. That's real wealth, Mark. That's real success. He stared at the divorce papers, his hands clenched in his lap. I have nothing, he said quietly. No job, no savings, nowhere to live. I've been staying on friends' couches, barely getting by. I thought if I could just come back. You thought I'd save you, I finished, like I always did before. But I'm not here to rescue you anymore, Mark. I'm here to finally close this chapter of my life and move forward. Mark's hands shook as he reached for the divorce papers, his coffee now cold and forgotten. What if? He swallowed hard. What if I told you I have a lead on recovering some of the Defimax money? There's this lawyer who specializes in crypto fraud. I held up my hand, stopping him mid-sentence. Are you seriously trying to pitch me another scheme right now? The familiar glint of desperate hope in his eyes told me everything. He hadn't changed at all. He was still looking for the easy way out, still trying to chase phantom riches instead of building something real. It's not a scheme, he insisted, leaning forward. This lawyer, he's already helped other victims recover their investments. We cold. There is no we anymore, Mark. I interrupted, my voice firm. And there's nothing to recover. That money is gone. But that's not why you're really here, is it? He fell silent, unable to meet my eyes. I waited, letting the moment stretch until he finally spoke again. I saw the article about you in Business Weekly, he admitted quietly. Your company's expansion, the new development project downtown. When I realized how successful you become, you thought you could come back and benefit from everything I've built? I finished for him. The same way you once thought you could get rich quick with crypto. Tears welled in his eyes, but I felt nothing. No pity, no anger, just a calm certainty that I was finally closing the door on this chapter of my life. I was proud of you, he said, his voice breaking. Reading about everything you've accomplished. I realized what a fool I'd been, throwing away our marriage for. Stop, I said firmly. You weren't proud of me, Mark. You were envious. There's a difference. I pulled out one more document from my portfolio, a cashier's check. His eyes widened when he saw the amount, $50,000. This is the exact amount of debt you left me with, I explained, placing the check on top of the divorce papers. I'm offering you a chance to do one right thing. Sign the papers and the money is yours. What's the catch? He asked, suspicion creeping into his voice. The catch is that you disappear from my life completely. No contact, no attempts to reconnect, no trying to leverage our past relationship for your benefit. You take this money and you do what you should have done 2 years ago, start over. And if I don't sign? I smiled, gathering my photos and documents back into my portfolio. Then I proceed with a contested divorce and sue you for the fraud you committed by opening those credit cards in my name. My lawyers have built quite a case, including proof that you forged my signature. That's felony fraud, Mark. Want to guess how many years that carries? The color drained from his face. You wouldn't. The Sarah you knew 2 years ago wouldn't, I agreed. But I'm not her anymore. You taught me a valuable lesson when you walked out. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is let them face the consequences of their actions. His hands trembled as he reached for the pen I'd placed on the table. For a moment, I thought I saw a flash of the man I'd once loved, the one who made me laugh, who dreamed big dreams with me on Sunday mornings. But that man was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized. As he signed the papers, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. It was really over. The check won't bounce, he asked, and I almost laughed at the irony. Even now, he was worried about being scammed. Unlike crypto tokens, Mark, real estate generates real money. The check is good. He stood up, clutching the check like a lifeline. I really did love you, Sarah. No, I said softly, you loved the idea of me, the supportive wife who would always be there to clean up your messes. But that's not love, Mark. That's dependence. After he left, I sat there for a while, finishing my coffee and thinking about the journey that had brought me here. The night he'd walked out had felt like the end of my world, but it had actually been the beginning. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica, my newest agent. Client meeting in 30 minutes. The Hendersons are ready to make an offer on the downtown property. I smiled, gathering my things. The Hendersons were a young couple, reminded me a bit of Mark and me when we first started out. But unlike us, they were doing things the right way. Careful planning, thorough research, no shortcuts. As I drove to my office, I thought about the check I'd just given Mark. Some might think I was crazy, giving him money after everything he'd done. But I knew it wasn't really about him. It was about me, about finally cutting all ties with my past and moving forward without any loose ends. The next morning, I stood in front of my team at our weekly meeting. 20 ambitious real estate agents, all drawn to my firm's reputation for integrity and smart investment strategies. Remember, I told them, our job isn't just to sell properties. It's to help people build sustainable wealth, to guide them towards smart decisions that will serve them well in the long run. There are no shortcuts to success, but there is a proven path. Later that day, I received a final text from Mark. Thank you. I'm sorry for everything. I didn't respond. Instead, I focused on my computer screen, where I was reviewing plans for our newest project, a mixed-use development that would bring affordable housing and small business spaces to a struggling neighborhood. This was real value, real impact, real success. The manila envelope with the signed divorce papers sat on my desk, ready to be filed. Next to it was a framed copy of the Business Weekly article Mark had mentioned. The headline read, From Teacher to Real Estate Mogul, How Sarah Mitchell Built a $1 Million Empire from Nothing. But they got it wrong. I hadn't built it from nothing. I'd built it from lessons learned, from hard work, from the ashes of broken dreams and betrayal. And in the end, that made it all the more valuable. I opened my calendar to check my next appointment. Another client meeting, another chance to help someone build their future the right way. This was my legacy now, not the money or the success, but the knowledge that I was helping others avoid the mistakes I'd learned from. The sun was setting over the city skyline, casting a golden glow through my office windows. From up here, I could see several properties I'd helped clients purchase, each one representing a dream realized through patience and persistence. Mark's final text still glowed on my phone screen, but I deleted it without a second thought. Some chapters need to stay closed, some bridges need to stay burned, and some lessons need to stay learned. Besides, I had work to do. Real work, building real value, one property at a time. The mahogany walls of my father's study seemed to close in as he signed the final document with a flourish. The scratching of his Mont Blanc pen against paper felt like nails on a chalkboard. There, he said, sliding the trust fund transfer papers across his desk. It's done. All $2 million will go to Jennifer instead. My name is Emma Chen, and at 28, I was being written off by my family for the last time. My sister Jennifer stood by the window, trying to hide her triumphant smile as she watched our father disinherit me. Emma, my mother sighed from her perch on the leather armchair, if you just gone to law school like your sister, if you just applied yourself. I did apply myself, I said quietly, watching my father's expression darken. Just not to what you wanted. Playing with computers in your apartment isn't applying yourself, he snapped, standing up to tower over his desk. Your sister made partner at Thompson and Mitchell at 32. Meanwhile, you're what? Coding websites for small businesses, living in that tiny apartment in the city. I could have told them then. Could have explained that what they saw as playing with computers was actually the development of an age-driven financial technology platform that was about to revolutionize global markets. Could have mentioned the Series B funding meeting I had next week with venture capitalists who'd already valued my company at $300 million. But I didn't. I learned long ago that my family only saw what they wanted to see. You're right, I said instead, standing up. I'm clearly a disappointment. Jennifer deserves the money more than I do. Jennifer shifted uncomfortably by the window. For a moment, I caught a glimpse of the sister I used to know, the one who'd shared ice cream with me after bad days at school, who'd helped me with my math homework before our parents' expectations had driven a wedge between us. Emma, she started, but I held up a hand. It's fine, Jen, really. Congratulations on making partner. You've earned this. As I walked toward the door, my mother called after me. Will you at least join us for dinner? Your father's reserved a table at Le Bernardin to celebrate Jennifer's promotion. I turned back one last time, taking in the scene. My father's disapproving frown, my mother's practiced worry, Jennifer's mix of triumph and guilt. The study walls were lined with law degrees and bar association awards. Not a single photo of me or my accomplishments in sight. I have a meeting, I said, but enjoy dinner. The drive back to the city gave me time to think. The trust fund had never been about the money. I had more than enough of my own now. It was about what it represented. My parents had set up identical trusts for Jennifer and me when we were born, meant to be released on our 33rd birthdays. But a clause allowed them to redirect the funds if they felt one of us was failing to live up to the family standards. My phone buzzed with a text from Maya, my CTO. VCs moved the meeting up to tomorrow. You ready? I smiled, thinking about the presentation we prepared. More than ready, I typed back. Time to change the game. When I reached my apartment, the tiny space my father had sneered at, I kicked off my heels and walked straight to my home office. The wall-mounted screens displayed real-time data from our AI system's latest test run. Numbers scrolled past, each one representing another successful prediction, another validation of what we built. The playing with computers my father dismissed had led to the creation of aita, adaptive trading heuristics and enhanced neural analytics, an AI system that could predict market movements with unprecedented accuracy, processing millions of data points to identify patterns human traders could never spot. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Jennifer. I'm sorry about Dad, her text read. You know how he gets. The trust fund doesn't matter anyway, right? You're doing fine with your computer stuff. I stared at the message, noting how even Jennifer's attempt at kindness came with a subtle dismissal of my work. Thanks, Jen, I replied. Enjoy dinner. Turning back to my screens, I pulled up the pitch deck for tomorrow's EC meeting. The numbers were staggering. Our beta testing had shown aita outperforming traditional trading algorithms by 312%. Major banks were already quietly reaching out, hoping to get early access to the technology. A soft chime announced an incoming video call from Maya. Her face appeared on one of the screens, her usual energy somewhat subdued. Hey, she said, how'd it go with the family? About as well as expected, I replied, running a hand through my hair. Dad signed over my trust fund to Jennifer. They're celebrating at a Bernardin right now. Maya shook her head. Their loss. You ready to show those VCs tomorrow what real success looks like? I pulled up another screen showing ATHENA's latest test results. Actually, I've been thinking, what if we don't take the VC money? Maya's eyes widened. What? Emma, we're talking about a $50 million investment at a $300 million valuation. That's small thinking, I interrupted. Look at these numbers, Maya. We don't need VC funding. We could go public within a year, maintain complete control, and I smiled, thinking about my father's face at the IPO ceremony, really show them what playing with computers can accomplish. Maya was quiet for a moment, processing. Then a slow grin spread across her face. You want to build an empire. I want to build something that even my father can't dismiss, I corrected. Something that changes the way the entire financial world operates. Your father's a corporate lawyer, Maya pointed out. Wouldn't he have heard about ATHENI if it's as revolutionary as we think? I laughed. Maya, my father still uses a BlackBerry and thinks coding is something you learn at a community college. He hasn't heard about ATHENI because he's never bothered to ask what I actually do. His loss, Maya said firmly. So what's the play? Cancel the VC meeting? I shook my head, an idea forming. No, we use it. But instead of seeking investment, we pitch partnerships, get them to open doors to their network of financial institutions. We don't need their money, we need their connections. 6 months after being disinherited, I stood in our new office space in downtown Manhattan, watching our team of engineers work on ATENA's final testing phase. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered a perfect view of the financial district, the same institutions that would soon be revolutionized by our technology. Emma, Maya called from her workstation, you need to see this. I walked over, coffee in hand, to look at her screen. The latest simulation results were beyond even our most optimistic projections. Athena wasn't just predicting market movements, it was identifying market-moving events before they happened. Is this accurate? I asked, leaning closer to study the data. Maya nodded, her eyes bright with excitement. Triple verified. The AI spotted patterns in social media, news articles, and trading behavior that predicted the Morgan Stanley merger announcement 3 days before it happened. If this had been real trading instead of a simulation, we would have made billions, I finished. Have you shown this to the compliance team? That's the best part, she said, pulling up another screen. Everything's completely legal. Athena isn't using insider information. It's just better at connecting publicly available data points than any human could ever be. My phone buzzed. A text from Jennifer. Hey sis, haven't heard from you in months. Parents are worried. Dad says your phone number at the apartment is disconnected. I smiled slightly. Of course it was disconnected. We'd moved the entire operation to a $40 million office space 6 blocks from Wall Street, but my family still thought I was playing with computers in my tiny apartment. I'm fine, I texted back. Just busy with work. Another buzz. This time from our head of legal, David. SEC meeting confirmed for next week. They're interested in the compliance protocols. That was an understatement. When word had gotten out that we were developing something revolutionary in the fintech space, the SEC had practically begged for a meeting. They wanted to understand our technology before it hit the market. Smart of them, really. Ms. Chen. Our receptionist's voice came through the intercom. There's a Mr. Thompson here to see you. He says he's from Thompson and Mitchell. My heart skipped a beat. Thompson and Mitchell, Jennifer's law firm. One of the largest corporate law firms in the city. Send him in, I said, straightening my blazer. James Thompson himself walked through the door, senior partner and my sister's boss. He looked exactly like the kind of lawyer my father admired. Silver-haired, perfectly tailored suit, exuding old money confidence. Ms. Chen, he said, extending his hand. Thank you for seeing me without an appointment. I hope to forgive the intrusion. But when we heard rumors about what you're developing here. You heard rumors? I asked, gesturing for him to sit. From whom? He smiled diplomatically. Let's just say certain financial institutions are very interested in your technology. They're our clients and they asked us to explore potential relationships. Does my sister know you're here? His smile faltered slightly. Jennifer? No, this meeting is strictly confidential. Though I must admit, I was surprised to learn you were her sister. She's never mentioned that she has a sister who plays with computers. I finished for him. I imagine she hasn't mentioned me much at all. Maya appeared in the doorway, tablet in hand. Emma, sorry to interrupt, but the Goldman Sachs team is here for their demo. Thompson's eyebrows shot up at the mention of Goldman Sachs. I could almost see him recalculating my worth in his head. Mr. Thompson, I said, standing, I apologize, but I have another meeting. If you'd like to discuss potential relationships, you can contact our legal team to schedule something. Of course, he said, rising quickly. But Ms. Chen, whatever Goldman is offering, we can match it. Thompson and Mitchell represents half the major financial institutions in the city. I walked into the door, feeling a strange satisfaction. It's not about the money, Mr. Thompson. It's about changing the game entirely. I'm sure you understand. After you left, Maya gave me a knowing look. You enjoyed that, didn't you? Maybe a little, I admitted. How long until he tells Jennifer about our little operation here? Given that your sister's firm represents billions in financial interests, I'd say about 5 minutes. Sure enough, my phone buzzed again. Emma, why didn't you tell me? Jim Thompson just came back from your office looking like he'd seen a ghost. What exactly are you working on? I put my phone away without responding. There would be time for family revelations later. Right now, we had a demonstration to prepare for. The Goldman Sachs team was already waiting in our conference room. 5 executives in expensive suits, trying not to look too eager. Their presence here was a coup. Getting Goldman as an early partner would open every door in the financial world. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, standing at the head of the table. What you're about to see will fundamentally change how the markets operate. But first, I need you all to sign these NDAs. The morning of our IPO, I stood in front of my mirror adjusting my suit. Chanel, not that my parents would recognize the difference. The Wall Street Journal sat on my desk, our company's impending public offering splashed across the front page. ATE and AI set to launch biggest tech IPO of the year. Expected valuation, $800 million. My phone had been buzzing nonstop for days. First Jennifer, then my mother. Finally, even my father had tried to reach out. I'd let their messages pile up unanswered. They'd all be at the ceremony today anyway. The invitations had gone out weeks ago. Ready for this? Maya asked, appearing in my office doorway. She traded her usual tech company casual wear for a sharp business suit. Born ready, I replied, picking up my presentation folder. How's ATE&A performing this morning? Like a dream. The latest analysis shows her predicting market movements with 99.7% accuracy. The trading floor is buzzing. Everyone knows this is going to change everything. We made our way to the stock exchange where crowds had already gathered. Financial reporters lined the entrance, cameras flashing as we approached. I caught snippets of their commentary. Youngest female CEO to take a company public. Revolutionary AI trading technology. Already has contracts with major financial institutions. Inside, the exchange was electric with anticipation. Our team had gathered near the podium, along with representatives from every major bank and financial institution in the city. And there, in the front row, sat my family. My father's face was a study in conflicting emotions, pride warring with regret, confusion battling with awe. My mother kept dabbing at her eyes with a handkerchief. And Jennifer just stared at me like she was seeing her sister for the first time. Emma, my father stepped forward as I approached the podium. We had no idea. No, I said calmly, you didn't, because you never asked. Before he could respond, the exchange president called me to the stage. It was time to start the ceremony. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, my voice carrying across the suddenly quiet trading floor. 3 years ago, I started coding ATGNI in a tiny apartment. People called it playing with computers. They said I was wasting my potential. They couldn't see that I was building the future. My eyes met my father's as I continued. Today, ATGNI processes more financial data in a second than all of Wall Street could analyze in a month. She predicts market movements with near-perfect accuracy, all while operating within strict ethical and legal guidelines. But more importantly, she represents what's possible when you believe in your vision, even when no one else does. The ceremony proceeded according to tradition. Speeches, handshakes, the ringing of the bell. But the real moment came when our stock price appeared on the big board. The room erupted in cheers as the numbers soared past our projected opening. By lunch, my personal stake in the company was worth over $300 million, more than 100 times the trust fund my father had signed away. After the ceremony, my family approached hesitantly. Jennifer spoke first. "Emma, I'm so sorry," she said, her lawyer's composure cracking. "All this time, when you tried to tell us about your work." "Save it," I said, but not unkindly. "You all saw what you wanted to see." My father cleared his throat. "Princess, about the trust fund." "Keep it," I interrupted. "Jennifer earned it, just like I earned this. Sometimes the best thing someone can do for you is believe you'll fail. It makes success that much sweeter." "But we're family," my mother protested. "We should have supported you." I looked around at my real family, Maya and our team, the people who believed in the vision when it was just lines of code in a tiny apartment. "You're right, we are family," I said. "Which is why you're all invited to dinner tonight. I've reserved the private room at Le Bernardin. I hear it's a good place to celebrate success." My father's face reddened at the reference to that dinner 6 months ago, but he managed a small smile. "We'd be honored." Later that evening, as my family marveled at our company's technology and success over expensive wine, I thought about the long road that had led here, the nights coding while they thought I was wasting time, the meetings they dismissed as playing with computers, the victory they tried to give to someone else. My phone buzzed, a message from Maya. "Stock closed at double our projected value. You're officially a billionaire." I smiled, watching my father try to explain to his country club friends how his disappointing daughter had built an empire right under his nose. Success, I'd learned, wasn't about proving them wrong. It was about proving myself right. "Emma," Jennifer said, pulling me aside, "I need to tell you something. After Jim Thompson came back from your office that day, I looked up everything I could find about aita. I started buying stock in every company that showed interest in your technology. I believed in you, even if I didn't show it." I raised an eyebrow. "Did you make money?" She grinned. "Enough to pay back that trust fund 10 times over." "Good," I said, "because I'm going to need a lawyer I can trust for our next expansion phase. Someone who understands both technology and family." Her eyes widened. "Are you offering me a job?" "I'm offering you a chance to be part of something bigger than both of us. What do you say, sis? Ready to play with computers?" The next morning, as I walked into our office building, now officially the ATGNN Tower, I passed a young intern working on code in the lobby during her break. She reminded me of myself, back when everyone thought I was wasting time with computers. "Keep at it," I told her. "Sometimes the biggest success stories start in the smallest apartments." She looked up, recognition dawning in her eyes. "Ms. Chen, I read about how you built aita. My parents think I'm crazy for choosing programming over law school. But you have a vision," I finished for her. "Hold on to that. And remember, the people who underestimate you today will be reading about you tomorrow." As I rode the elevator to my office, I thought about legacy. Not the kind my father had tried to force on me, but the kind you build yourself, one line of code at a time. Athena wasn't just changing the financial world, she was proving that success doesn't always look like people expect it to. And sometimes, the best inheritance isn't the one you're given, it's the one you create for yourself.